Well, hello everyone and welcome to Coloritaville. This is Donna and today I am going to show you guys how I prep a page to use with my water-based products. So as you know, if I want to move the water around or move the ink around or anything like that, it also stops any bleed through of the inks to other pages. So if you want to use your water markers and you do want to, or you have a favorite water marker maybe, and it's bleeding through the next page, this will stop the bleeding. So that's what we're going to look at today. Excuse me. Now my magic potion is actually the Satin Glazing Liquid. It is made by Golden, and it is a slow drying exterior for acrylic colors. And how this works is it goes on to the paper and it coats the paper. And then when a water-based product, whether that be, it works also like it says for acrylic paints, but whether it be a paint or an ink or anything like that, it takes it a lot longer to dry and it kind of keeps it almost on the surface a lot longer. So you have a lot more time to work with that before the page dries. And it works really good. Like I said, it's stopping almost all bleed throughs and things like that. The one thing I have noticed is this liquid, even once it's dry, it's not playing well with alcohol markers. I thought that I may have found the way to keep alcohol markers from bleeding through a page, but nah, not so much. It seems the alcohol on the marker seems to kind of pull this back up off the surface of the page. And I was afraid it was going to mess up my markers. So I gave up with that, but I have been using this for a water-based product. And it says to let it dry for 12 hours, I believe. Let me see. It says use alone or blend with acrylic colors in any ratio. Useful for wet and wet blending, improves brushability. Working time depends on surface absorbency and environmental conditions. Do not apply thickly. Dry completely before recoating to avoid lifting. Do not use as a varnish. Always test your application. Apply above 49 degrees Fahrenheit. Clean with soap and water. Okay, so it doesn't say, but I think I read somewhere about 12 hours, but I'm going to be honest, my pages are drying within a couple hours. Once they are good and dry, they're fine, and you can start using it. So like I said, this is the page that I've been using, or this is the product I've been using. A lot of people have said to use gesso and things like that, but from what I have researched myself, gesso seems to leave a very rough texture on the page, and that was something that I was trying to avoid. The research that I did said that this was going to be much better, and it does seem to be, so I'm happy with this product. It's working. So this is definitely what I suggest to use. And there's going to be links down in the description of the video where you can buy this satin glazing liquid for yourself. It's really not very expensive at all when you take it, especially when you take into consideration you use so little of this. This is 8 ounces. This is going to last me for a very, very long time. Excuse me. And what I've been applying it with is just a large paintbrush. I make sure it's a soft brush. Once you finish applying it, please make sure that you do wash your brush immediately, because if this dries in the brush, it makes the bristles very hard, very, very hard. So I've seen people use sponges for this and things like that. I've also seen people smear it across just like with a credit card type thing, you know, like a store card or something. But this seems to be working really well for me, so that's what I'm going to use. This is the Zen Doodle Coloring, Inspiring Zendala's book. I did take a page out of the book earlier just so it would be completely dry so it could be used. You will notice there is a definite difference in the surface of the paper after this has been put on and dried. It's not, it is a little rough, but what it feels is toothy. it feels like it becomes very toothy. And you might be able to hear that a little bit too, opposed to this. Hear the difference? So yeah, so it is kind of toothy after this, after you do this, but you know, that's fine. It protects the page, and it does, I think maybe it even gives it more of a watercolor paper feel to that. But this is a page that's already prepped, and what will happen as it dries, as after you put it on and it starts to dry, it will kind of start wanting to roll the paper a little bit. Just let that happen, and then after it's, you know, pretty close to dry, just take the page and just kind of roll it with your fingers this way, and it kind of brings that back flat. And you can also lay it the opposite direction so it is flat, and it will regain its shape. But, you know, that's just anytime you put something wet on paper, you're going to have some paper curl, and it's just a matter of fixing it. When I was reading through some reviews from people who had used this, that was what a lot of people had complained about. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, if you put something wet on paper, that's what happens. But, you know, as you see, it's easily fixable, and you do not have to tear a page out of your book to prep the page. I just tore this out so it would dry. I was hoping it would dry faster so I could just sit it in sunlight coming directly through a window. So this is going to be the page that I color on. And then I'm going to show you first, before I color on this, I'm going to show you how to prep a page, or how I prep the page. I'm sure there is no wrong or right way. Well, maybe there is a wrong way if you use way too much. Okay. So what I do when I go to prep a page is just take, you know, I take just an extra piece of paper. I've seen a lot of people who tape all around and all that. I haven't found it necessary. I've treated pages in the book, and if a little bit of it gets onto like the edges of the page, it will make the pages stick together, but then you just take your finger and it pops right loose. I haven't had any problems. So, you know, I'll give you both sides of that. I have read where you need to cover all the area around it, but I have not done that, and it has been working fine for me. So I do just put like an extra piece behind. It doesn't really get soaking wet. That's not your goal. So I don't think there's going to be any bleed through problems, but I do generally just put something little back behind that page. Okay. All right. So when I get ready to use this, it doesn't necessarily say it needs to be shook well, but I do shake it before I use it, just in case anything has settled. So I make sure it's good and mixed. Excuse me. And then the top just screws open, and I'll put a little on my finger so you can see what it looks like. It does come out white, but when it dries, it's clear. So there's nothing to worry about. And all I do is I just start like somewhere on the page, and I do a couple lines. You know, I just do a few lines down the page. So there's on there. I think I'm going to have a dog bark, guys. Sorry. Riley, honey. Okay. Then once I get it on the page, I just pull out my brush, and I just go over the page like this. And that's just spreading it. And I actually used a little too much this time, to be honest. But you just spread it on, and you want to get an even coat. So once I finish going this way with it, I come to the top and I go sideways with it, just in the opposite direction. And then I'll kind of get at an angle. I'll lean down so I can, lean my head over so I can kind of look at it at an angle, just to make sure everything looks nice and even. So there's not any bumps, because of course, if you left a clump of it there and it dried, it would leave that clump. Okay. So this page is prepped. That is all there is to it. Now you lay this to the side and you let it dry. Once it is completely dry, it's time to color. Okay. All right. So hopefully this brush will be okay. I'm going to sit it over here just in a little bit of a glass of water until I can get some soap and water on that. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move this, and the paper is, you know, you can tell when you feel it that it's got, you know, some dampness on it. See how it's already kind of wanting to roll like that. So the best thing you can do is just let it be. Sit it off to the side. This is our prepped page here. That was already prepped. I'm going to set this off. Give me just a moment so I can get this over here so it can start drying. That'll give me a pretty mandala to color later. Okay. All right. So literally, guys, that's all there is to it. It is the Satin Glazing Liquid. Like I said, I'll leave links in the description. And what I've pulled out to work with is my Tombos, just Tombow dual brush pens. I have a Zig Art and Graphic blender, and the only reason I've got the Zig blender instead of the Tombos is my Tombow blender went dry. So I grabbed the Zig, and I also brought over a water brush in case I want to use a water brush instead of the blender. All right, so you don't have to use a lot of ink, truly, when you use these type of techniques. And of course, this is just a very simple demonstration, and you know, you can use these on any kind of images or things that you might want to use them on. Let me grab the way these are. It's going to take me a minute the way I have my pen stored to look for each individual pen. So just bear with me. All right. So this is 515, and according to my chart, this is light blue 515. I love Tombow to death, but they put a number and no name. I'd like to have a name. My color chart that I downloaded from Tombow is where I can see the names based off the numbers. Okay, so first of all, if you wanted to, you can just go in and now just color, because the page is nice and prepped, and it just takes that water-based ink so much better now. See, so much better now. But what you can also do is you can put, say, just a little bit of ink here, and then you could come in with a blender and just blend that color downward. So there's that technique that you can use. Or if you wanted to use a water brush, you can come in with a water brush and just pull that ink down. Something else that you can do is, looking for a different one. Okay. If you wanted, you could add your blue, add your pink, and then just lightly go over with a water brush, just a little, so let the water do what the water's going to do and blend those together for you. So you can do that. There's so many different ways that you can do this. If you wanted to, what you can also do is take the water brush and actually get the ink onto the water brush instead of putting it down first, and you can transfer that way. And it works beautifully. You know, for a very long time, I would see people use watercolor, and it mesmerized me to see people use these different water products. And, you know, I would see them put these inks down on the paper, and then they would come in and do all these things, you know, pull the ink around and you know, pull the ink out and mix the inks and all these different things. And I could not do it. And it drove me crazy because I couldn't do it. And then I found out why. Because if a page is not prepped, and I'm not sure if the back of this is gonna, I don't know if this is gonna work since I prepped the front. But if you just put like water-based ink down on a regular old sheet of paper and you start trying to pull, look at that, you get no pull. So I would see all of this happen on videos, and I'm like, what is the problem? I thought, okay, I hate these markers. These people know some kind of a secret that I don't know, and it drove me crazy. But the secret is literally, you see how that came through too. You see the difference between here and here. Exactly. It's prepping the page. So, you know, but if you put it down on paper that is prepped or on watercolor paper, you get a totally different, experience. You see that? Completely different experience. And you can just work with the lines until the lines don't show up. There's all kinds of ways that you can do this. You can put your watercolor inks down onto a palette and color that way. And yeah, so I mean, the ideas of things that you can use, I mean, they're truly like endless. There's so many different ways that you can use. Excuse me, I'm getting choked up. That you can use your water-based markers once you have prepped a page to accept those markers correctly. Look, direct blending. Did you see how easy that happened? I just directly blended one color right into the other. I'll do this again. You know, put down my darker one first. Came in with my lighter. And look at that. Perfect blends. Do you see? This stuff is amazing for these water-based products. It just makes things so much easier. I'll show you on the back side that's not prepped what happens if you try to do that. Okay, so got your darker color. You come in. There's no blending. Do you see that? Nothing happens. So if you've been struggling with not liking water-based markers because you've seen people do these beautiful, wonderful things with them and you just can't do it, the reason you can't do it is because you're not using the right paper, or you're not treating your paper before you come in to do your coloring. If you treat the paper first, you're going to get beautiful results, even just straight coloring and not trying to drag inks. They blend together very nicely. See? It's just so easy. Just kind of drag it down and, you know, work with it a little bit till you get it to look the way you want it to look. And there you go. It's blended. So yeah, there's endless ways that you can do this. Some people will put their ink down on a palette of some sort and then pick the ink up and use it that way. That way works also. So there you go. That is all there is to prepping a page, is this beautiful little product right here. I'll leave links down in the description below for the satin glazing liquid. If you've been struggling with watercolor, I hope, or water pens, markers, whatever, I hope that you'll invest in this and try to prep a couple pages and just see how it works for you. All right. If you've already subscribed to the channel, thank you very much. If you're not a subscriber, please consider hitting that subscribe button and be sure to ring the bell so you'll be notified of my future videos. I'm always looking for new things that I can bring to you guys to help bring enjoyment into your coloring experience. Until next time, guys, peace, love, and happy coloring. Bye, guys.